The text message arrived at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. I was sitting in my corner office on the 32nd floor of the Meridian Tower, reviewing acquisition proposals for my restaurant group, when my phone buzzed with what would become the most expensive text message my mother ever sent. Thanksgiving is family only this year. You're not welcome. We've decided we need a peaceful holiday without drama. Hope you understand. Mom. I stared at the message for a long moment, watching the city traffic crawl along the streets below. From this height, the cars looked like toys, the people like ants. Everything seemed small and insignificant from up here, including the family who thought they were delivering a devastating blow to their disappointing daughter. I typed back, "Understood." Then I set my phone aside and returned to the stack of documents on my desk. Specifically, the acquisition proposal for Bella Vista, the upscale Italian restaurant where my family had been hosting their Thanksgiving dinners for the past 5 years. The same restaurant where I'd sat through countless meals, listening to my parents and siblings discuss their successes while treating me like an afterthought. The same restaurant where, in exactly 2 weeks, they planned to have their family-only Thanksgiving dinner without me. By the end of that day I owned it. My name is Sophia Chin and I'm the founder and CEO of Golden Hospitality Group, a restaurant and catering empire worth $67 million. I own 43 restaurants across 6 states, employ over 2,000 people, and was recently featured on the cover of Restaurant Business magazine as the millennial who's revolutionizing fine dining. My family thinks I'm a struggling line cook who can't hold down a job. For 3 years I've let them believe this fiction. While they assumed I was bouncing between kitchen jobs and living paycheck to paycheck, I was actually building one of the most successful restaurant groups in the region. While they worried about my unstable career path, I was acquiring properties, developing signature concepts, and turning failing restaurants into culinary destinations. The deception hadn't started intentionally. When I first began building my business, I was working 100-hour weeks, living on coffee and determination, pouring every penny back into expansion. I looked exhausted, stressed, and financially strapped not because I was failing, but because I was investing everything into future success. My family saw the exhaustion and stress and drew their own conclusions. Rather than asking about my goals or showing interest in my work, they assumed I was struggling and needed their guidance. They offered unsolicited advice about getting a real job and being more practical about your career choices. It was easier to let them believe what they wanted to believe than to constantly defend my choices or prove my worth. So I let them think I was the family disappointment while I quietly built an empire. The irony was delicious in its own way. Every family gathering had been an exercise in condescension, with my siblings bragging about their conventional successes while my parents worried aloud about my future. My brother Michael, a corporate lawyer, would lecture me about job security. My sister Jennifer, a pediatric surgeon, would suggest I consider going back to school for something more stable. Meanwhile, I was generating more revenue in a month than either of them made in a year. But today's text message had crossed a line. Being excluded from family gatherings was one thing. I could understand their desire to avoid what they perceived as awkwardness. But being told I wasn't welcome at Thanksgiving, being explicitly excluded from family-only celebrations, was something else entirely. They wanted a peaceful holiday without drama? Perfect. I'd give them exactly that. I called my acquisitions director, Marcus Williams, and asked him to expedite the Bella Vista purchase. The restaurant had been struggling since the pandemic and the owners were desperate to sell. What might have taken weeks of negotiation was completed in 2 days when I offered them 15% above asking price for a same-week closing. By Friday afternoon, I owned the restaurant where my family planned to celebrate Thanksgiving without me. The next 2 weeks passed quickly as I prepared for what would either be the most satisfying business decision of my career or the most expensive family drama in history. I spent time at Bella Vista, getting to know the staff, reviewing operations and planning improvements. The restaurant had good bones, excellent location, beautiful decor, talented kitchen staff, but it had been poorly managed and was losing money. It was exactly the kind of turnaround opportunity one specialized in. I also took the time to research my family's reservation. Party of 8, 6 p.m. seating, special requests for their usual table by the window overlooking the city. They'd been coming here for Thanksgiving for 5 years running, long enough to have expectations and preferences that the staff knew by heart. Long enough for this to really matter to them. I didn't plan to be vindictive. I'm not cruel despite what my family might think after this story gets out. But I was going to make a point about respect, about family, and about the consequences of excluding people you claim to love. The Wednesday before Thanksgiving, I received a group text from my sister Jennifer. Looking forward to a peaceful family dinner tomorrow. So glad we can all be together without any stress or complications. The passive-aggressive dig was clear. I was the stress. I was the complication. My presence would somehow ruin their holiday celebration. I didn't respond to the text, but I did forward it to Marcus with a note. Reminder of why tomorrow matters. Thanksgiving Day arrived crisp and clear. I spent the morning at 3 of my restaurants, checking on prep for what would be one of our busiest days of the year. The hospitality business doesn't stop for holidays. If anything, it intensifies. Families who don't want to cook at home come to us, trusting us to make their celebrations special. It's a responsibility I take seriously, which is part of why the Bella Vista acquisition felt so significant. This wasn't just about my family's reservation. It was about demonstrating that hospitality is about inclusion, not exclusion. About welcome, not rejection. At 4 p.m., I arrived at Bella Vista to personally oversee the evening service. The staff was excited to meet their new owner. I'd already announced plans for renovations, equipment upgrades, and salary increases that would take effect after the holiday weekend. Miss Chin, the hostess Maria, approached me as I reviewed the reservation book. I wanted to confirm the special instructions for the Chin party tonight. I know they're not related to you, just a coincidence with the name, but they've requested their usual table and mentioned it's a family tradition. Actually, Maria, there's been a change regarding that reservation. Her face showed immediate concern. A change. The reservation has been cancelled. Cancelled? But they booked it months ago. They've been coming here every Thanksgiving for years. I understand. And I'm the one cancelling it. Maria looked confused, then worried. Miss Chin, I don't understand. Did they do something wrong? Are they difficult customers? Because they've always been polite, they tip well, and they've never caused any problems. They're not difficult customers, I said gently. They're my family. The confusion on her face deepened. Your family. My parents, my siblings, their spouses and children. The Chin party of 8? Those are the people who raised me. But why would you cancel your own family's reservation? It was a fair question and one I'd been asking myself for 2 weeks. Why was I doing this? Was it petty revenge? A power play? A desperate attempt to get their attention? Maybe it was all of those things. But it was also something more important. It was a statement about what family means and how family members should treat each other. Because, I said carefully, family includes everyone or it includes no one. You don't get to have family-only celebrations that exclude actual family members. Maria nodded slowly, though I could see she was still processing this unusual situation. What should I tell them when they arrive? Tell them exactly what you told me to confirm, that their reservation has been cancelled. If they ask why, you can tell them the new owner made the decision. If they want more information, they can call me directly. And if they get upset? Then you handle it the same way you'd handle any upset customer. Politely, professionally, and with the knowledge that you have the full support of ownership. At 5:45 p.m., I positioned myself in the back office where I could see the front entrance through the security monitors. My family was notoriously punctual, and I expected them to arrive right on time for their 6 p.m. reservation. They didn't disappoint. At exactly 5:58 p.m., I watched my parents enter the restaurant, followed by Michael and his wife Sarah, then Jennifer and her husband David with their 2 young children. They were dressed in their Thanksgiving best, clearly excited for their traditional family celebration. They approached the hostess stand with the confidence of regular customers, people who knew they belonged here and expected to be welcomed warmly. Chin party of 8, I heard my father say to Maria through the audio feed. We have a 6 o'clock reservation. Maria checked her book, her face professionally neutral. I'm sorry, Mr. Chin, but I don't see a reservation under that name. That's impossible, my mother interjected. We made this reservation 3 months ago. We've been coming here every Thanksgiving for 5 years. Check again. I've checked twice, ma'am. There's no reservation for Chin tonight. I watched my family exchange confused glances. Michael stepped forward, his lawyer instincts kicking in. This is clearly a mistake. We can show you our confirmation email. We've never had problems here before. Sir, I understand your frustration, but the reservation was cancelled. Cancelled? My father's voice rose slightly. By whom? We certainly didn't cancel it. The reservation was cancelled by the new owner of the restaurant. The new owner? Jennifer looked confused. Why would the new owner cancel our reservation? We're good customers. We've never caused any trouble. Maria glanced toward the back office, knowing I was watching. I'm sorry, but I don't have more information than that. If you'd like to speak with the owner, I can provide a phone number. I watched my father's face redden with indignation. This is outrageous. We've been loyal customers for years. We bring our family here for important celebrations. And some new owner just cancels our reservation without explanation. Dad, calm down, Michael said, though he looked equally frustrated. Let's just go somewhere else. There are plenty of other restaurants. It's Thanksgiving evening, Sarah pointed out. Everywhere good is going to be booked. Maybe we should just go home and order pizza, Jennifer suggested, though her disappointment was obvious. Pizza? My mother looked horrified. For Thanksgiving? This was supposed to be our special family tradition. I watched them stand in the restaurant lobby, my family of 8 looking lost and frustrated, their perfect holiday plans crumbling around them. Part of me felt guilty for causing their distress. A larger part of me felt satisfaction that they were finally experiencing what exclusion felt like. But the largest part of me felt sad. Sad that it had come to this. Sad that they'd created a situation where their daughter felt the need to buy a restaurant just to make a point about family inclusion. My phone buzzed with a text from Michael. Do you have any idea what's happening at Bella Vista? They cancelled our reservation and won't explain why. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I continued watching as my family huddled together, trying to figure out their next move. The children were getting restless, my mother was clearly upset, and my father was working himself up into the kind of righteous anger that usually led to him demanding to speak to managers. That's when I made my decision. I walked out of the back office and approached the hostess stand. Maria, I'll handle this. My family's backs were to me as they discussed their options in increasingly frustrated tones. I cleared my throat softly. Excuse me, is there a problem here? They turned around in unison and I watched 8 faces cycle through confusion, recognition, and shock in rapid succession. Sophia. My mother's voice was barely a whisper. Hi, Mom. That. Everyone. I nodded to each of them in turn. I understand there's some confusion about your reservation. Sophia, what are you doing here? Jennifer asked. Do you work here now? Actually, I own here now. The silence that followed was profound. I could see them processing this information, trying to reconcile the daughter they thought they knew with the woman standing before them in a designer suit, clearly in charge of an upscale restaurant. You own this restaurant? Michael's voice cracked slightly. As of last Friday, yes. I purchased it from the previous owners. But, how? My father looked genuinely bewildered. How could you possibly afford to buy a restaurant? This place must be worth $2.3 million, I said calmly. Which was actually a good deal considering the location and potential. My mother sat down heavily in a nearby chair. I don't understand. You're a line cook. You work in restaurant kitchens. How do you have $2 million? I'm not a line cook, Mom. I haven't been a line cook for 3 years. Then what are you? I'm the founder and CEO of Golden Hospitality Group. We own 43 restaurants across 6 states. This is number 44. The silence returned, heavier this time. I could see them trying to process this revelation, trying to reconcile 3 years of assumptions with the reality standing before them. 43 restaurants? Sarah asked faintly. 44 now. We employ over 2,000 people and generate about $67 million in annual revenue. Jennifer made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. 67 million? Give or take. It varies by quarter. Michael, ever the lawyer, was the first to recover his composure. Sophia, if this is true, why didn't you tell us? Why let us think you were struggling? Because you never asked. In 3 years, not one of you has ever asked about my business goals, my financial situation, or my professional achievements. You saw what you expected to see and never looked deeper. But you always seemed so stressed, so tired. Mom's voice trailed off. I was stressed and tired. Building a business from nothing is exhausting. But that exhaustion was the result of success, not failure. You assumed it meant I was struggling because that fit your narrative about my choices. Dad found his voice, though it came out hoarse. Why didn't you correct us? Would you have listened? When's the last time any of you showed genuine interest in my work? When's the last time you asked about my goals or dreams without immediately offering advice about why I should be more practical? They had no answer for that because we all knew the truth. For years our family interactions had followed the same script. They would update me on their successes, then spend time worrying about my failures, then offer unsolicited advice about how I should live my life. And the reservation? Dad asked quietly. Why cancel our reservation? Because, I said, my voice steady despite the emotions churning inside me, you told me that Thanksgiving was family only this year and that I wasn't welcome. So I decided that if I'm not family enough to be included in your celebration, then you're not customers enough to be included in my restaurant. Mom started crying then, silent tears streaming down her face. Sophia, we didn't mean. You didn't mean what? You didn't mean to exclude me? You didn't mean to hurt my feelings? Or you didn't mean for there to be consequences for treating your daughter like she's not part of the family? We thought. Jennifer's voice was small. We thought it would be easier. Less complicated. You always seem so uncomfortable at family gatherings, so we assumed. You assumed I was uncomfortable because I was ashamed of my failures. You never considered that I might be uncomfortable because you all treat me like a charity case who needs your pity and advice. The restaurant continued bustling around us. Other families were being seated, servers were taking orders. The normal rhythm of Thanksgiving dinner service continued while my family processed the revelation that their supposedly failed daughter was actually more successful than all of them combined. What happens now? Michael asked finally. That depends on you. What do you mean? I gestured toward the dining room, where several tables sat empty due to last-minute cancellations and no-shows. I could seat you for dinner. We have space available and the kitchen is prepared for your usual orders. You could have your Thanksgiving celebration here just like you planned. Hope flickered in my mother's eyes. You would do that? After we? I would. But there's a condition. What condition? I join you. All of you at the table as a full member of this family. No more exclusions. No more family-only celebrations that don't include me. No more treating me like an outsider who happens to share your DNA. Dad cleared his throat. Sophia, we owe you an apology. A huge apology. We had no idea. Dad, stop. Don't apologize for not knowing about my success. Apologize for excluding me from family celebrations. Apologize for 3 years of treating me like a disappointment. Apologize for making assumptions about my life without ever bothering to ask for the truth. You're right, he said quietly. I'm sorry, Sophia. We're all sorry. We've been terrible family members and there's no excuse for that. Mom stood up and walked over to me, her eyes still wet with tears. Can you forgive us? Can we start over and do this right? I looked at these people who had raised me, who had shaped my understanding of family and belonging. For years I'd wanted nothing more than their approval and inclusion. Now I had their attention, their respect, and their regret. But what I really wanted was their love, offered freely and without conditions. We can try, I said finally. But it has to be different going forward. No more assumptions about my life or my choices. No more exclusions or conditional invitations. And no more treating me like I need your guidance to figure out my own life. Yes, Mom said immediately. Yes, we can do that. We want to do that, Jennifer added. We want to know who you really are, not who we thought you were. I nodded to Maria, who had been watching this family drama unfold with professional discretion. Please seat the chin party of 9 at table 14. The large table by the window. 9. Mom looked confused. 8 family members plus me. The way it should have been from the beginning. As Maria led us to the table, I caught sight of my reflection in the restaurant's mirrors. 3 hours ago I had been a successful businesswoman making a point about family inclusion. Now I was simply a daughter having dinner with her family on Thanksgiving. It was a better reflection. Dinner was awkward at first as we all adjusted to this new dynamic. My family peppered me with questions about my business, my success, my plans for the future. They wanted to understand how they'd gotten everything so wrong, how their struggling daughter had become a multimillionaire without them noticing. But gradually, the conversation shifted from my success to simply getting to know each other again. Michael told me about a case he was working on that he thought might interest me. Jennifer shared stories about her children that weren't just bragging but genuine attempts to include me in their lives. My parents asked about my personal life, my goals, my dreams, not to offer advice but to understand. For the first time in years, I felt like I was actually part of the family instead of just related to them. Sophia, Dad said as we finished dessert, I have to ask, what made you decide to buy this place? Was it just to make a point about our reservation? I considered the question carefully. Partly. But also because this is a good restaurant with good people who deserved better management. The previous owners were letting it fail, and that's not fair to the staff or the community. Sometimes the best business decisions are also the most personal ones. And now I'm going to turn it into the flagship location for Golden Hospitality Group. We'll renovate the kitchen, update the decor, and create a destination restaurant that this city can be proud of. Will you keep the Thanksgiving tradition? Mom asked hopefully. The family dinner's here? I smiled at her. As long as the invitation includes everyone in the family. It will, she promised. Always. As the evening wound down and my family prepared to leave, each of them hugged me. Really hugged me, not the polite, distant embraces we'd exchanged for years. There was genuine warmth, genuine love, and genuine regret for the time we'd wasted on misunderstandings and assumptions. Sophia, Michael said as he pulled on his coat, I'm proud of you. I should have said that years ago, but I'm proud of what you've built and who you've become. Me too, Jennifer added. I can't wait to learn more about your business. Maybe we could have lunch next week? Just the two of us. I'd like that. After they left, I stayed at the restaurant to review the evening service with my management team. It had been a busy night, successful by every measure. But the conversation that mattered most had happened at table 14. How did it go with your family? Maria asked as we wrapped up. Better than expected, I said honestly. Sometimes people need dramatic gestures to understand what really matters. And what really matters? Inclusion. Respect. The understanding that love without respect isn't really love at all. As I drove home that night, I reflected on the cost of making my point. $2.3 million for a restaurant plus renovation costs, plus the emotional risk of potentially destroying my relationship with my family forever. But it had been worth it. Not because I'd proven my success or gotten revenge for their exclusion, but because it had forced all of us to have conversations we should have had years ago. My phone buzzed with a group text from Jennifer. Thank you for the most eye-opening Thanksgiving ever. Looking forward to many more family dinners together. Love you, sis. Similar messages followed from Michael, my parents, and even Sarah and David. Messages of gratitude, love, and commitment to doing better. I added one more name to the group text and sent my own message. Looking forward to next year's Thanksgiving at Bella Vista. Family dinner for 9. Always room for family. The responses were immediate and unanimous. Excitement, gratitude, and love. Real love this time. The kind that includes everyone, asks questions instead of making assumptions, and values people for who they are instead of who you think they should be. It had taken $2.3 million and a canceled reservation to teach my family what I'd known all along. That success comes in many forms, that respect is earned through understanding, and that family means everyone or it means no one. But watching my mother cry with gratitude, hearing my father say he was proud of me, feeling my siblings' genuine interest in my life, that was worth every penny. Some lessons are expensive, but the important ones are always worth the cost. Golden Hospitality Group's 44th location opened for regular service the following Monday, with a fully booked reservation list and a staff excited to be part of something bigger. Within 6 months, it would become our most profitable location. And every Thanksgiving since, Table 14 has been reserved for the Chin family party of 9. No exceptions, no exclusions, no conditions. Just family the way it was always supposed to be.